Hello, my name is Amy Usman, and I am the office manager here at Rose Wellness Center for Integrative Medicine. For those of you that don't know our center, we are located in Oakton, Virginia. We have two functional medicine physicians, an integrative nutritionist, health coach, a homeopath, an acupuncturist, and an infrared sauna. I would like to introduce to you Dr. Sushma Hirani, who is our medical director, and she's going to share with you all how to take control of your immunity and health. Thank you.
I really, this topic I know is on the forefront of everybody's, is just all over the place today. I know probably any family that you're speaking to, any friends that you're speaking to, it's just, there's always this topic of COVID-19 coronavirus, whether you're discussing your social life or your work life or your health or whatever it may be, somehow COVID-19 probably sneaks into the topic. So I thought this would be a good time to really talk a little bit more about it. The virus itself, I'm going to spend some time on, and some of you probably don't know much about it, and then some of you probably know a lot about it, maybe even more than me. So at the end, as Amy said, we'll go ahead and take some questions. You can put them into the chat box. I'm also going to be talking today about your immune system, because as you all saw, what I wrote in the newsletter, this really is a fight between the virus and your immune system, and whoever is stronger wins. And so we want to make sure our immune system is stronger than this virus. Okay. I again do recommend that you all try to turn off your videos, because remember, this will be recorded, and if you don't want everyone else seeing your faces, please turn off your videos.
And your microphone.
And the microphones. All right, so let's get started here. Let's see.
Live or recorded?
All right, bear with me. There we go. All right, so let's start by talking about what the immune system is. So it's interesting because we actually live in a sea of microbes, and many of you have heard me say this before, that our body is actually 90% bacteria and only 10% human cells. So really, most of our body is not even human cells. So how does our immune system protect us if we're not even all human? Well, our immune system is a complex, remarkable system which knows how to differentiate between harmful threats, which arise from both outside and inside our own body. It's constantly scanning and constantly monitoring our body for evidence of structures that don't belong, that are dangerous, and that are foreign. Examples of external threats include harmful infections, such as pathogens, viruses, bacteria, parasites, etc. Environmental toxins as well, like pollution, tobacco, allergens, all the different things in the environment that our immune system views as a threat. And finally, we also have internal threats, the big one being cancer cells. Cancer cells are cells that change, and so our immune system goes, whoa, this doesn't belong, this is foreign, it looks dangerous, and it wants to attack those as well. So believe it or not, our body is constantly fighting against cancer also. And then also our cells produce a lot of metabolic waste products. So these are also known as internal threats and free radicals. So let's kind of go through this little cartoon here on the very basic of how the immune system works. So we've got lymphocytes known as B lymphocytes, which is kind of like the military intelligence agency. It notices an invader, and then it goes to what's known as the T helper cells and says, look, I found this foreign substance. It doesn't look like it belongs in the body. It's a quote unquote non-self. And then the helper T cells evaluates that, kind of double checks and goes, yeah, this is non-self. It doesn't belong. Here, B cell, let me give you some cytokines, which are protein-based chemicals which help to kill the bugs. And the B cell then becomes activated. And once it becomes activated, it utilizes those cytokines or chemicals to actually kill the pathogens. So we keep talking about stimulating our immune system. Well, I think it's very important to understand that we want to balance our immune system. Okay, so a healthy immune system is critical for normal growth and longevity. If we have an underactive immune system that's not adequately able to fight against these germs, then of course that leads to a weakened body and perhaps life-threatening consequences. Failure of that immune surveillance can also, as I mentioned before, increase risk of certain cancers. However, on the flip side, if our immune response is activated without any kind of real threat, or if it's not turned off once that danger crosses, then that can result in an exaggerated immune response, resulting in allergies and autoimmune conditions. An autoimmune condition is a disorder where our immune system has lost the ability to differentiate between self and non-self, kind of like in this slide over here. The problem with autoimmune is sometimes the immune system itself can be more of the problem or the bigger problem than the virus or bacteria or whatever else invades. So a question I get frequently asked is, I've got autoimmune conditions. Am I at an increased risk with this COVID-19? Well, again, we just don't know a whole lot right now. But one of the things that we are starting to see that, we're kind of seeing in some cases that have already occurred is people with autoimmune conditions are tending to have a more severe symptoms per se. You will feel a lot more because that immune system is releasing a lot of cytokines, a lot of those chemicals, increasing inflammation, attacking the lungs. So you'll notice more symptoms. However, what they're finding is the rate of death is still very, very low in people with autoimmune conditions. So the fatality is low, but it presents a little bit more severely. The other important thing with autoimmune conditions is a lot of people with autoimmune conditions might be taking immune suppressant medications. That's where it gets a little bit tricky, or if you're taking chronic steroids, because these medications, of course, reduce your immune system, which helps the autoimmunity, but if it reduces your immune system, of course, you may not be able to attack the pathogen or the virus quite as well. So a word of caution, please make sure you do discuss that with your physicians and how you want to kind of handle that. All right, so we've got basically two parts of our immune system. We've got innate immunity and adaptive immunity. The innate immunity consists of physiological barriers like our skin, our gut lining, the linings of our bladder, respiratory lining, vaginal lining, etc. Not only do these act like physiological barriers and don't allow these pathogens to come into our body, but those same lining tissues also produce certain enzymes and other defense, chemicals, which help to, again, kill the pathogens. Now, as you can see on that cartoon there, if some of those, pathogens are getting through those physical barriers, then the second part of our innate immunity kicks in. That's when a lot of our white blood cells get released, like neutrophils, macrophages, monocytes, eosinophils, natural killer cells, etc. These kind of go in and release more chemicals and break up and kill the pathogens. If our innate immunity, if that's not enough, then we adapt or utilize what's known as our adaptive immunity as the last backup. So the innate immunity is the system that we're born with. It's a much quicker response, but a less specific response. That consists of the barriers that I had mentioned, as well as the chemicals and white blood cells that I had mentioned, which go to the site of infection and engulf and destroy that enemy. There's a picture of the immunity in action for innate immunity. You can see the cell goes and engulfs that virus or whatever the pathogen is. And then again, once it's inside there, it releases the chemicals to try to kill it. And this is the same thing in a microscopic view. That's what it looks like under the microscope. These are actually gonorrhea bacteria being engulfed by a neutrophil. All right, what is adaptive immunity? This is acquired throughout our life. In an adaptive immunity situation, our immune system targets specific threats to the body. That threat has to be processed and recognized by the body so that our immune system can actually create an antibody designed to recognize that threat. Once that threat is neutralized, our adaptive immune system remembers it, making future responses to that same germ more efficient. And that, by the way, is also what the concept of vaccines is based on. Now let's talk about that a little bit more. So again, the adaptive immune system is seen in the cartoon. Meet the team. We've got the special defense unit, our T cells and our B cells. which use chemicals to, chemical signals to basically recognize or tag the pathogen, whatever that pathogen is. And the B cell creates that antibody, which tags it. And then comes in the killer cells, which looks at those tagged cells and it attacks, it destroys. So in a vaccine scenario, the same pathogen is created in a way that is less risky to your body so that your body can recognize it and already provide an immune system against it, so that, like, for example, in the case of coronavirus, you know, if we've already had, if once they make the vaccines, once our body recognizes this particular COVID-19, if we were to be exposed to it, we won't necessarily develop an infection because our body has already recognized it. And this not only happens with the vaccines, but our own natural immunity. What they are saying right now, what they've found so far, and hopefully that is the case long term, is that once you've been exposed to the COVID-19 and once you've developed that memory against it, you will not contract it again, because now your body is recognized it as that pathogen and tagged it. So this is an example of that. Once that antibody has been produced, you can see the little guy on the slide that's saying, hey guys, check out my new hat. That's literally what the antibody looks like, these little upside down Ys, which, you know, that's chemically what it looks like on these different pathogens, so that the body can recognize that that is not good and let's go and kill it. That's the memory storage. So the result, the immune system when a virus enters the body for the first time versus the immune system when the same virus attacks again, right? We've got a lot more defenses, we're ready for it to come. So where is this elusive immune system located? Well, the reality is it's not just in one area, it's spread out all across our area. It's a complex network throughout the body. All of the immune cells originate from the bone marrow, which then develops, which those immune cells then develop into mature cells in different parts of the body. Those immune cells are constantly circulating through the bloodstream, through our lymph nodes, or through the lymph circulation, patrolling for problems. The killer T cells, the ones that actually do the killing, mature in the thymus, which is a gland you can see over there on top of the lungs. And lymph nodes are a communication hub where the immune cells sample information brought in from the body and determine, all right, what do I need to do about this? In addition, we've got lots of immune lymphoid tissue in our lungs, bladder, vaginal, and the gut. We've got something called Peyer's patches in our gut. And in fact, much research has shown that 70 to 80% of our immune system is actually housed in our gut. So hence the importance of diet, how we eat, what we eat. Leaky gut and maintaining and balancing a healthy gut can play a tremendous role in reducing not only immune issues, but inflammation as well. So as we age, our immune response capability reduces, therefore increasing the risk of more infections and more cancers. Multiple studies have been done that show that the elderly are more likely to contract infectious diseases and die from them compared to younger people, especially respiratory infections, influenza, and pneumonia, which are actually a leading cause of death in people over the age of 65 in the world. So it's not a surprise that this COVID-19 is tending to attack the elderly population in much of a similar way. Why is there this increased risk? Well, there's a lot of hypotheses out there. One of the reasons might be that the thymus atrophies, that gland that we just saw atrophies, it is not able to produce enough of those killer T cells. Additionally, as we age, the ability of the cells, immune cells, to communicate with each other, create the memory response, et cetera, does tend to reduce over time. So let's talk a little bit about this COVID-19. What is this? This is actually a coronavirus. And the coronavirus is not new. We've had several different types of coronaviruses already on our Earth. The most common coronavirus being the common cold. The common cold, believe it or not, is a coronavirus. However, this particular one has been designated known as the severe acute respiratory syndrome virus. So it's actually similar to the SARS virus outbreak that was there in the past, except that this is novel. It's brand new. This Earth has never seen this particular virus, and hence a lot of the panic, you know, and uncertainty that's out there, because we really don't know much about it. How is it going to react? Does it have properties similar to the other coronaviruses, or does it not? We don't know. And plus, we don't have any treatments and vaccinations against it, which is also creating kind of the increased fear at this time. So about 99% of people that have this virus will have symptoms, and 1% of people will actually have no symptoms at all. So yes, you can have COVID-19 without having any symptoms. However, even though you may not have symptoms, or even if you have very mild symptoms, you can still pass it on to others. And that's why they're making such a big deal about all of this social distancing. On average, symptoms appear 5 to 6 days after you've been exposed to the infection, but it can take 2 days or even 14 days. So once you're exposed, it can take up to 14 days before you actually develop the symptoms. The most common symptoms are fever, fatigue, and dry cough. And then less common symptoms include aches and pains, runny nose, sore throat, shortness of breath, and diarrhea. In fact, in China, they were, with at least some of the early studies they found at least 40 to 50% of people that had the COVID-19 had diarrhea as a symptom. Now, the 80% of people that will get COVID-19, which is of course the majority, vast majority of the population, will have mild symptoms and will be able to get rid of it on their own without any of an issue. Those are of course the people with some of the best immune systems. Okay, about 13% of people will develop a more severe disease, and about 6% will be critical. And currently, the death rate that we're seeing is about 2 to 3%, but most of those are in the elderly. And the most common cause of death is multi-organ failure and pneumonia. So, as most of you already know, the main mode of spread is through respiratory droplets. So if an infected person sneezes or coughs, and if you're standing within 6 feet of that infected person and it goes into your own nose or mouth and you inhale it or breathe it in, it goes into your body. Hence the 6 feet social distancing that everyone's been talking about. That is the most common cause of infection, okay? Much less common is by touching surfaces that already have the virus on it. But the key is this: even if you touch that virus, you're not necessarily going to get infected. You're only going to get infected if you touch that virus and then you touch your mouth, nose, eyes, and again, send it into your respiratory system, okay? Hence the importance of not touching your face, especially when you're outside. Frequent hand washing. Once you've washed your hands properly, you should be able to touch your face without a problem. All right, so what happens here? Now that we've kind of talked a little bit about how the immune system works, well, the virus invades and it tends to replicate or divide in the lung cells, okay? The lung cells contain these little cilia, which actually help to push pathogens out. That's one of the reasons we cough as part of our immune response, because we're trying to cough out that bug, that virus, or whatever it might be. However, in this case, this virus has a tendency to really affect and attack those cilia. So the cilia don't work normally, and therefore there's a buildup of debris, fluid, inflammation, tending to cause that shortness of breath, and therefore in some cases pneumonia. So a lot of times what's happening with the COVID-19 is once your body's identifying that viral invader and sending that immune response signal, it's going and trying to kill the virus to clear up the damage and repair the lung tissue, which is creating a little bit of that inflammation, which is normal. However, sometimes that immune response is hyperreactive, and it's also killing the healthy cells, creating even more damage. And hence, again, the lung complications and the pneumonia that we're tending to see with COVID-19. So what is the treatment? Well, the good news is they're really working at a pretty fast rate on trying to come up with treatments for this, ranging from, you've probably heard some of the malaria drugs combined with like a Z-Pak, right? Zithromax, right? Zithromycin. They're also looking at, vaccines. In fact, some of the initial vaccine trials have already started. They're looking at different antivirals. So everybody around the whole world is really working on trying to come up with a treatment. But the reality is, as of now, we still don't have a very good treatment. The best treatment right now is prevention. So we're going to talk about our immune system and prevention. If you do get the virus, the treatment is supportive measures, rest, fluid, nutrition, and then we'll also talk about possible natural therapies. So let's take control of our immune system, right? Our own immune health. So in order to function well, our immune system requires balance and harmony. There's been a lot of research done on the effects of diet, exercise, age, psychological stress, and other factors on our immune response, both done in animals as well as humans. So there's no doubt about it. Your first line of defense is to choose a healthy lifestyle. It's the single best step you can take to keep your immune system strong and healthy. It's not that here, take, just this particular supplement or take this herb, although those can be helpful. It really is much more complex than just taking a single supplement. Okay, so now more than ever, it's important to be proactive and take charge of your physical, mental, emotional health. If there have been things you've been putting off, I'm going to start diet changes later, I'm going to start exercise later, I'm going to start, stress reduction later, this is the time to start it. Don't delay anymore. Because, again, the research shows that you can have a tremendous impact on your immune system by doing some simple things, which we'll talk about. So we're going to talk about 4 areas of lifestyle concentration. 1, diet and nutrition. And some of the micronutrients and supplements along with that, exercise, sleep, and stress management. So, healthy immune system needs regular nourishment. And there is clear data to support the connection between a healthy diet and better overall health in general, including our immune system. So there are particular micronutrients such as zinc, selenium, iron, copper, folic acid, B vitamins, C, E, etc., which have been shown to alter the immune response in animals. So by getting enough of these nutrients, we actually improve our immune defenses against the pathogens. So I've listed over there some foods which are rich in these nutrients. However, if you're struggling with getting all of that in, or if you suspect your diet is not providing you with all of your micronutrients, and especially if you're 65 and above, it might be very helpful to take a very good quality daily multivitamin and mineral support. It's been shown that taking a multivitamin, good quality, is more effective than taking mega doses of just a single supplement. Make sure you're getting enough immune-boosting antioxidants, which buffer the effect of free radicals. What are these? These are harmful chemicals that damage healthy cells and our genetic, our DNA, which gives the viruses, they make the viruses stronger, right? Giving the viruses a better shot at invading and compromising our immune system. We don't want that to happen. So please include a rainbow of fruits and vegetables. The more colored veggies and fruits we get into our diet, the more antioxidant rich. And again, there's a list on this slide for you to review later. So we talked about the gut being a very important aspect of our immune system. And, I would have to talk about gut health in a different topic. It's just too much to go over today. However, a large part of our gut health is probiotics and prebiotics. Probiotics increase the population of good bacteria in our gut, which spark the production of anti-inflammatory cytokines, again, those chemicals, which help with our immune system. So getting plenty of fermented foods rich in probiotics is important. And then prebiotics are the food that help to nourish the probiotics. And these also are important in keeping a balanced gut microbiome. And I've listed those down there for you as well. According to Harvard Health Publishing, you should be getting about 0.8 grams of protein minimum per kilogram of body weight in order to avoid getting sick. They've actually done several studies on this. Lower amounts of protein, why is that bad? Well, believe it or not, a lot of these cytokines, B lymphocytes, T lymphocytes, etc., are made from proteins. So if we don't have enough proteins, we're not going to be able to produce a lot of these cells, which then in turn make the antibodies and the chemicals needed to fight off the infections. Proteins are also rich in zinc, which aids in the production of white blood cells, which also help to fight the infection. And again, I've listed some sources of lean protein, and the list is, of course, more exhaustive than that. Studies have shown that neutrophil, which is one of the white blood cells, that activity is cut in half for more than 5 hours following the intake of 100 grams of sugar. So you all know what that means, right? Keep your sugar low. And I know 100 grams sounds like a lot, but you'll be surprised of how many people are going above the 100 grams. So really keep your sugar intake low. And then I've included some healthy herbs, which actually help with your immune system. Don't go out and get them as supplements. Get them as the actual, herbs, and just, flavor your foods with them on a regular day-to-day basis. Incorporate as part of your regular life. A connection exists between nutrition and immunity, especially seen in the elderly, as I alluded to before. There's actually a term called micronutrient malnutrition. And that's seen in a lot of the developed countries, such as our own country, where we're seeing that because older people tend to eat less and often have less variety in their diets, they're not getting all of those important micronutrients in. So more than ever, you know, if you're 65 and above, please make sure you're eating the rainbow, get that variety in, get your nutrients in, get your multivitamins in. So what are some practical tips? Well, eat real food. And you know, we don't have to make this difficult. Unless you have a lot of gut issues or if you have specific food allergies, there's really nothing you can't eat. It's a matter of moderation and balance. You know, as it's been said, perfection is the enemy of progress. You don't have to be perfect. Please don't try to be perfect. Just try to do the best that you can, okay? And eat real foods. Many, many studies have shown. One of my favorites is the Mediterranean diet because I just think it's so healthful. There have been so many studies done on the Mediterranean diet, not only on the immune system, but all kinds of systems in our body, including the heart, the brain, metabolism, etc. And the Mediterranean diet really provides good quality proteins, lots of vegetables, and moderate, good quality, healthy fats. There's a wonderful book called VB6, Eat Vegan Before 6 to Lose Weight and Restore Your Health by Mark Britman. In that, he recommends eating a plant-based diet with moderate fat, low in processed foods, and refined carbohydrates before 6 p.m. every day. And then after 6, still eat a lot of vegetables, but then go ahead and add in your fish, your meat, or, you know, allow yourself to cheat a little bit 2 to 3 times a week. You feel like eating something, you know, for dessert, go ahead and eat that dessert. Be strict with yourself, but also be kind to yourself. Find that right balance of strictness and kindness. And once you set those rules for yourself, you'll find it's easier to stick to it. So The Ideal Plate by Julia Ross, she suggests fill up your a quarter of your plate with protein, which is about the size of the palm of your hand. Low-carb vegetables should make up more than half of your plate. High-carb vegetables, grains, legumes should be a corner of your plate. And then use healthy oils and fats as flavoring like olive oil, coconut oil, butter, avocado oil, etc. And she also recommends beginning your meal with the low-carb vegetables and some of the protein, and end your meal with the higher carb section. That'll help to take some of that edge off the appetite and reduce your excess interest in the higher carb section. So the order in which you eat your food can also make a difference for those of you that have that craving and feel like, gosh, you know, I just feel like I need this. So force your body to kind of eat some of the better foods and then allow yourself to eat the other foods you're craving, but you'll automatically find you're not craving as much of it, so you're able to reduce it as well. All right, let's get into some natural therapies that are being studied currently in relationship to the coronavirus. So melatonin is best known for its role in circadian rhythm, and it's obviously used as a popular sleep aid. Many of you might be taking melatonin or have taken melatonin for sleep. However, they've also found that it inhibits the action of a particular inflammatory marker known as the NLRP3, which is one of the inflammatory markers involved in the exaggerated immune response seen in those critical coronavirus cases. Melatonin's ability to suppress the activation of this actually helps to counteract the severe inflammatory responses, reduces the production of those inflammatory cytokines, lowers the infiltration of immune cells into the lung, and also reduces lung tissue injury. Pretty cool, right? We have known for a while that melatonin has immune actions, and that's what instigated the studies on how it, responds to the coronavirus. In some of the clinical trials that they're doing, they're using doses of 3, 6, and 10 milligrams of melatonin orally in patients that are in the ICU, which have shown some positive results and satisfactory safety. Now, keep in mind, none of this is proved, none of this is 100% known, but there's just some safe things out there that maybe you can look into, at least keep on hand. If, God forbid, something like this were to happen, go ahead and keep your melatonin on hand. And try it. Doesn't hurt to try. All right, angiotensin receptor blockers. So the cells in the lining of our lungs contain what's known as these ACE2 receptors. When the coronavirus enters the body, it uses these ACE2 receptors to attach to and enter your cells. And that's how it begins to replicate and spread. And because some of this is known, research has started to focus on the use of ACE angiotensin receptor blockers, which is meant to halt or at least slow down the virus's ability to attach and enter the body. Some of you might be familiar with the prescription ACE inhibitors, which are actually blood pressure medications such as Cozar and Diovan. However, there are some natural compounds that have ACE inhibiting blocking effects. And again, I've written those out there for you, as well as the links to the studies. Vitamin C is a very powerful antioxidant. We've known that for a long, long time now that vitamin C is important for the immune system. So again, they started to do some early studies, and what they're finding is that high-dose vitamin C might actually be able to reverse the effects of the coronavirus. It's found to mitigate that massive inflammation and subsequent respiratory failure in coronavirus. So again, another important thing I think it's good to have on hand if, God forbid, you were start to have, some of those respiratory symptoms. Of course, it's good to take a little bit every day just to keep a healthy immune system, but using high doses in the form of a powdered vitamin C can be very helpful. Now, too much vitamin C can cause diarrhea or loose stools, so you want to find your right dose. A lot of you already know this. I've already talked to you about vitamin C. A lot of you are already on vitamin C or at least taken it before, so you're familiar with it. But very important to make sure you're taking adequate vitamin C. If you're getting diarrhea, reduce your dose. Keep vitamin C powder, which will enable you to get higher doses, especially in time of need. Vitamin D, this is another one that most of my patients are familiar with. It's if you are a patient of mine, you definitely know about vitamin D, and you're probably on vitamin D. Most people in this area do have vitamin D deficiency. We don't get a lot of sunlight. Research has shown that having healthy levels of vitamin D helps keep our immune system healthy and can protect against respiratory illnesses in general. Okay, so vitamin D plays a critical role in promoting immune responses, both from an anti-inflammatory and immune balancing property. So the T cells that we talked about before, but guess what? They can only perform their actions after they bind to vitamin D. So hence, if you don't have vitamin D, those T cells are not going to be very effective. Low vitamin D levels are associated with an increased risk of respiratory diseases, including tuberculosis, asthma, chronic pulmonary disease, as well as, of course, viral and bacterial respiratory infections. And low vitamin D has been linked to decreased lung function, which can affect your body's ability to fight respiratory infections. Zinc, not a lot of research done on zinc yet on how it impacts the virus. However, we do know that with the other 6 coronaviruses, including the original SARS virus and the common cold virus, we do know that the zinc has tended to interfere with how strong that they become. So it might be helpful to take a little bit of zinc every day. I don't recommend, doing more than 15 to 30 milligrams a day, especially if you don't know what your zinc levels are like, okay? So we don't want to do too much zinc because zinc can be a double-edged sword. Before I get into exercise, a couple of other things that can really be helpful, certain antivirals, oil of oregano, olive leaf, silver. There's multiple antivirals out there that can also be helpful with kind of attacking and killing the virus too. But most of those are not going to be very helpful taking them for immune or preventive purposes, just things to keep around. Elderberry syrup is another one, just things to keep around, if you started to have symptoms. All right, exercise. How does exercise help our immune system? Well, it promotes good circulation, allowing the cells and all those substances of the immune system to move through their body and do their job effectively. Believe it or not, too much exercise is not good for the immune function either. They found that athletes that do intensive training tend to have lower immune systems. So it's the right balance. And so what is suggested is about 20 to 30 minutes, 5 days a week of aerobic exercises to protect your immune system. Because what this exercise actually does is it helps that antibody response as well as the natural killer response. So again, I know most of you are thinking, I know, Dr. Rani, all this sounds good, but this is a lot of work. How am I going to do all of this, right? Well, there's a wonderful article in the Journal of American Medical Association by Dr. Yancey. And I thought something she said in there was very interesting. She stated that even brief bouts of moderate to vigorous physical activity can be achieved in little tiny bits as brief as 3 to 5 minutes at a time. Well, you think, is that effective? Well, in the article, she demonstrated quite a bit of data to prove it. I'm sold. So what that means is you don't have to go out there and do these big exercise regimens and wait for the gym and all this sort of stuff. Just split your exercise into mini sessions throughout the day. Find ways to make it naturally blend into your day. Instead of taking a break and sitting down, take a break and walk. Take a fitness break at your next meeting at work. You know, meet your colleagues at work. Of course, when you are at work, right now you're going to do it with your family and the safety of your home and your neighborhood. But yeah, go ahead and take the walks. You know, go outside, get the fresh air. Just maintain your 6 feet distance. So instead of, you know, taking your breaks by sitting or doing something sedentary, walk. Listen to music while you're walking. You know, you can watch something on your phone while you're walking, or even better, do it with a friend or a partner and talk while you're walking. All right. Sleep is our ultimate reset button. Without enough sleep, our immune system is definitely compromised. It's at night when we sleep that our body makes those important cytokines or chemicals, which are the proteins that target infection and inflammation, okay? Now, people that are having a lot of problems with sleep or get a lot of interrupted sleep, it's also been shown that if you can try to make up for that by 1 to 2 daytime power naps of about 15 to 20 minutes each, which has been shown to offset the negative effects of sleep deprivation on the immune system. So if you're not able to sleep because you're having sleep issues, obviously you want to look into that and work on it, but you can do these power naps to at least, you know, keep your immune system working better and in check. All right, so being out of harmony with our inner selves, unfortunately, which is a modern day epidemic, does definitely have physiological consequences on our immune system. Studies over the past, many years has clearly demonstrated that the central nervous system and brain, the endocrine system, which consists of our adrenals and our female and male hormones, and the immune system, the 3 of these interact in complex ways, okay? Experimental studies have shown that people that are chronically stressed are more predisposed to develop viral infections, as well as the opposite. Studies have shown that people that work on stress modification are able to reverse that and affect their health in a positive way, okay? So what is stress, really? I mean, there's many definitions of stress out there, but one of my favorite definitions of stress is the lack of control, right? When we feel like we don't have control over a certain situation, that's stressful to us, okay? Researchers did a study on some rats, and it showed that the possibility of controlling the source of stress might be the key to reducing that negative impact of stress. So they gave one group of rats a controllable stress. I don't know what it was, but they gave it a controllable stressor. They gave the other group of rats an uncontrollable stressor. And what they found is, even though the cortisol or stress hormones were produced equally in both rats on an average, what they found is that the controllable group had less negative impact of that stress or negative hormones on their body. Pretty cool, right? So you can have the same stress, but if you can control or handle that stress better, it less negatively affects your body. So that perception of being in control is an important buffer of negative stress. And of course, this takes practice. Some of us, it comes naturally. Some of us, we have to work on it, practice it, find resources, maybe find help with other experts that can help us, or tap into our own resources, YouTube videos, whatever it is, to try to find what works for us, what resonates with us. But this is critically important. And what I tell people is, please focus on the factors that you have control. I know there's a lot of stress going on around us right now. We have no idea how long this is going to last, what's going to happen. We're scared for our loved ones. We're scared for ourselves, our family, our friends. There's a lot of uncontrollable factors out there right now. The things we can't control, put it out of our mind. Take control of the things you can control in your day-to-day life. And once you feel like you have a sense of control, again, you will be able to reduce that negative impact of stress, plus you'll feel better, Okay, and let's take this opportunity of forced rest and isolation to work on our health, strengthen our bodies, and not just our health, but other things that we've been putting off that we've been wanting to work on. Take this opportunity to do that if you can. Maybe take the opportunity, if possible, to slow down. And let's put our stressors in perspective. So studies have shown that stress reduction practices done about 15 to 20 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week, that's it, was highly effective at improving our well-being. So the perception of stress matters, how you decide to react to that stress. We don't have control over the stress, but we have control over how we are going to respond to it. So there's multiple stress management, techniques out there. Again, you want to find what resonates with you. Next few slides give you some resources, mindfulness, meditation. Go ahead and click on any of these links to help you out. And then, of course, most of you have heard from me about Headspace and the Calm app, which are also wonderful. Focused breathing. Here are some breathing exercises you can do, which can be very helpful. And aromatherapy. So some of these scents that we inhale by putting some of these essential oils either right on our skin or using a diffuser, believe it or not, can be helpful. And then there's a lot of teas, calming tea, chamomile tea, holy basil tea, which can also provide that calming action. I'm learning how to relax, doctor, but I want to relax better and faster. I want to be on the cutting edge of relaxation. So again, don't make relaxation and stress reduction a chore. It shouldn't be something that, oh God, I've got to find time to do this. Try to let it blend into your life. And even if it's something as simple as listening to meditative music, so do it. When you're doing your exercise, when you're doing your walking, listen to some meditative music. Let's blend. Let's find techniques and ways that we can blend. We're all different individuals, so we want to find what works for us. All right, so as we said before, right now, unfortunately, there is no cure, but fortunately, they're working on it quickly, and hopefully something comes up quickly. But right now, our only cure and our best method to really get control of this is to reduce the chain of transmission. It's estimated that each person who develops COVID-19 spreads it to about 3 other people. So in just 15 steps of transmission, the virus goes from 1 person to 14.3 million other people. And those 15 steps may only take a few weeks. So can we slow the chain of transmission? Yes, we can. That's the whole point of this quarantining, contact tracing, and basically staying at home that we're trying to do now. The more that everybody does it at the same time, the quicker this will pass. So please reach out to others, encourage others that are not already doing it. So can one person really make that much of a difference? Well, Britta Jewell, who is an epidemiologist, she did a study, and she said that assuming 30% growth of COVID-19 over the next month, she found that the difference between one person taking aggressive social distancing action now versus a week later found that that single person would be able to prevent 1,800 cases, 360 hospitalizations, 90 ICU visits, and 18 deaths. So every single individual can make a big difference in this. So please take this seriously, and let's all do our part. Each of us can make a difference. And if you do need to go out and be around, again, maintain your distance, all of the CDC guidelines, which you all are probably so familiar with by now. So I thought this was interesting. That's why I put it in here. The paradox of preparation. So there was a great article by Jason Kotke, and several experts were on there. And one expert said, well, the thing is, if shutdowns and social distancing work perfectly and are extremely effective, it'll seem in retrospect that they were unnecessary reactions, right? We all kind of really did the right thing and nothing happened. We would think, oh, that wasn't a big deal anyway. So you'll never really know if what you did personally helped. That's the nature of public health. When the best way to save lives is to prevent a disease rather than treat it, success often looks like an overreaction. And I think that's a very important quote, not only from a COVID-19 perspective, but in general from a preventive health perspective. We're doing all the right things and we never end up developing an autoimmune disease or heart disease or cancer or whatever. We would have never known that we prevented it, right? So very, very important to practice prevention in whatever we do. Coming back to COVID-19, what's the ultimate best prevention? And not just for COVID-19, but really any pathogenic, is proper hand washing. an important study, and multiple other studies have found that proper hand washing reduces the spread of disease by 70%. That's huge. Global spread, that is, by 70%, because the study that they did was actually in airports. So I've given you a slide over here on proper hand washing mechanisms. It's not good enough just to kind of run your hands under the tap, you know, for a couple of seconds. You want to do it the right way to really kill the pathogens that are on there. One of the advantages of COVID-19, I guess, is that it's a enveloped virus, which means it creates this film around itself, a lipid film. And the good news is it's easy to dissolve that lipid film and really kill the virus. So that is the good news. So therefore, as much as I don't like people using chemicals a lot, this is the time to use some of those chemicals and make sure that you sterilize, you know, regularly to kill any virus that might be lurking on surfaces. Please make sure you're covering your own face with either a face mask or a scarf or something, just to, you know, prevent you from constantly breathing in that chemical as well. So again, some tips and guidelines over here to keeping your home safe. And then there are, you know, the CDC, the FDA, as well as the World Health Organization, WHO. I've just put some links of some frequently asked questions. I think they've done a fantastic job, very, very thorough in all the frequent questions that people may have regarding the COVID-19. So please feel free to look at those websites if you are interested. But the most important thing that I want to just reiterate again over here is that you can take charge of our health. Don't worry about our uncontrollable factors. You know, whatever we can do on our part, we will still create some positive impact.